Okay. Well, welcome, Danielle. How are you today?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I'm so excited to
Good.
be here.
Yay. I'm so
Honored.
glad. Yay. Well, I just would love for you to start out by just telling us a little bit about yourself. Just introduce yourself to everyone.
All right. Well, my name's Danielle LaBar. I am a realtor by trade. I have my own real estate company. I'm also a mom to three and a foster mom.
Okay. You do so much more than that. Like, wait a second. You just like totally. You also have a podcast.
Oh, yes.
Which we had Cassie on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So we've already talked a little bit about the podcast, so our listeners have heard, but
Love it.
I love your podcast. I think it's so fun because especially this season when you guys are doing the what would you say? What's it called?
Cases, like the different legal cases.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like the legal cases, it's so interesting because even though I'm not a realtor, I still love listening to it because I'm like, oh my gosh. And then I find myself trying to figure out what I would do. I just feel like I could easily just step into being a realtor after listening to your podcast. So there you go.
You should.
Okay, so you're a podcaster. You also do a lot of stuff in our community.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We have a few different things that I am involved in the you know, political side of things a little bit with the Members Association. And then we do have a nonprofit that
Mhm.
work with, that we've started to
Yeah.
contribute back to the community. So
Yeah. And then you also co-own some other businesses in town,
I
correct?
do. Yes.
Like, are we allowed to say that? I'm just kidding.
You just have to feed me all the things. Like I
I
was like, oh, I
know.
just have a nice little snippet I'll give you.
No, you do a lot. You do a lot.
Yeah.
So that kind of leads me into my first question is like, you do a lot. You do have your hands in a lot of different pots and you still are so present for your kids and are an amazing mama. So how do you know when to say yes and when to say no?
Well, that's a good question. I really follow my gut a lot, to be
Mhm.
totally honest. Like there are times where I have over like agreed to things that maybe I shouldn't have, and then I
Sure.
feel like start to feel overwhelmed. And I think I've just gotten better over the years of what is, like, I call it my deepest wisdom. Like what's my deepest
Mhm.
wisdom thing? Like, is this something that there's a reason to do it? Like it's fulfilling something in me or fulfilling something for my family or my kids. And if not, then I just say no. And I don't
Yeah.
feel bad. Like there was a period of time where I was like, oh, I should do this. My mom
Mhm.
like definitely leans into that a lot. And
Yeah.
so I used to think that, and now I don't feel bad at all. I'm just
Yeah.
like, sorry, can't do it, or it just doesn't work. And
Yeah. Yeah.
okay with
So how do you balance it all? Like, how do you do all the things?
it feels like chaos in my brain a lot. I'm not gonna lie. Like, so I
Yeah.
said that to someone the other day. They're like, "Oh, it seems so graceful the way you do everything." And I said, internally, it feels like I just live in chaos all the time. But um, I think for me, I've learned to be good at prioritizing and setting my schedule. Like I'm a planner type person, and that's the only way I keep things straight. And I really start the first things I put in my planner are things that are non-negotiable to me.
Okay.
My kids, their activities, stuff I have like that fulfill me as a human, like hanging out with friends or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like that all goes in my weekly planner first. And then from there, I fit in appointments with clients or business meetings or all of that kind of stuff. And that's the way my brain operates. And I'm able
Yeah.
to look at it and be like, okay, here's where we're at. Here's where we have downtime. If someone asks me to do something, can I fit it in or not? But I also have the benefit of, because I'm self-employed, I have flexibility where some people
Yeah.
don't have that flexibility, which I love. It
Yeah.
allows me to do a lot more.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes complete sense. Okay. So you mentioned at the beginning when you give your little list of things that you do, that you're a foster mom. And
Yeah.
so kind of along the same lines of like saying yes, what led you to say yes to foster care?
Wow. Okay. So I grew up around foster care. My
Okay.
stepmom and my father did fostering for newborns for a very long time. And I grew up in a big family I'm the oldest of six.
Hmm.
So between like my sets of parents. And
Yeah.
so I always enjoyed helping out kids and stuff like that. It's just something that's always been near and dear to my heart. I've always volunteered in that. And so I became a CASA
Okay.
when I was 21.
Can
And I
you
did that.
just pause really quick and tell people what a CASA is? Because not everybody will know.
Sure. So a CASA is a court appointed special advocate, I think is what it stands
Yep.
for. I forget
Yep.
now. But it's basically, or like guardian ad litem's another term, but usually those are attorneys. And basically where your job for the court is to speak on the best interest of the child. So you're not
Yeah.
associated with like parents or foster care providers or the state, or it's just for the kid.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
so you kind of go and like I'd interview all sorts of people associated with the case. I'd sit in on all sorts of different meetings and whatnot, and really kind of get an overall picture of what was happening so I could report back to the judge.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So you did
Yeah,
that.
I did that for a long time. And then I had kids and decided I didn't think I could handle
Hmm.
all of that while I was a mom, or especially of young children. And so I knew I wanted to foster. And then I have, of course, like it's just me, I'm a single mom.
Yeah.
And I had my oldest and I was like, I really don't want, I don't think I'm somebody who wants to parent young kids forever. Like, cause
Yeah.
originally I thought, oh, I'll raise my kids and then I'll foster. And I was just
Hmm.
kind of like, I don't really think that's where I'm at. I think I'd rather just like have young kids all at once. And
Yeah.
then, and so then of course I had my son and I was like, you know what, I'm just going to move forward with trying to foster. And so
Hmm.
that's what led me into it. Plus I was surrounded by a community of people who also fostered. So it made it seem so much more doable of like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, like I'm seeing all these other people do it. And I don't know, I think it was very encouraging to be
Yeah.
surrounded by that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of talking about your support system, then you have an amazing support system, between neighbors, friends, and your family. You just have like the best family. Me and John talk about that all the time, how like we wish that every family was like your family, but, um, so my question then along those lines is, I know there's a lot of people who, maybe aren't parenting kids from hard or kids who have experienced trauma, but they are the support system for those kids. So
Yeah.
how does your support system do it so well? Like what tips and advice would you give to our listeners who maybe aren't parenting, but are the support system?
Oh, that's so good. I feel like, well, one, I do. I'm very fortunate that I have such an amazing support system. Like I think about
Mhm.
that all the time. Top
Mhm.
of my like gratefulness
Yeah.
um, chart every day. And I think part of it is that my support system comes from like they're healthy. And I think that
Okay.
that's really important is like, even if you're not the person parenting the kid, like
Mhm.
you also have to be in a healthy mindset. You have to be like in a growth mindset. And I think that that's really helpful as a support person because it's really easy to see behaviors in the kids and not understand them.
Mhm.
And I mean, even with my own kids, honestly, like I'm the only child, I guess, in my family who has kids. Like I'm
Mhm.
the only one with grandkids for my parents.
Yeah.
So like my younger brothers sometimes can be like, oh, why are your kids doing this? Like they have
Yeah.
this thing. My family is very much like, we don't shy away from confrontation. So it's,
Yeah.
I'll tell my brother, oh, it's so great. Like people who aren't parents have the best parenting advice. And I love it.
Yeah.
Usually get them to like be quiet. But
Yeah.
I think like that's part of it. It's like you have to listen to the parent,
Mhm.
and really like understand like if you're watching them parent in a way that you're like, that doesn't make sense, you need to draw this line, or you're trying to like be more strict than the parent, like really listen to where they're coming from and
Mhm.
understand why they're doing the things the way they're doing and ask questions and be willing to step in and help out too. I think that like my support system is huge like that. Like if I need childcare, I need a break or whatever, they're always willing to lend a hand.
Mhm.
And I think that's a beautiful way to support the foster parent or parents as well as the kids.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked what you said about being in a space where you're willing to have a growth mindset and um, be able to like see outside of yourself that this isn't about me and what I think is best, but what's actually best for the child.
Yes.
So you are in it. You are in the trenches parenting, and you've adopted now, but you're still fostering. So um you kind of oh gosh, okay, so I lost my thought there.
It's
Let me
totally
start over.
the beauty of editing.
I know, right? Okay, so basically what I'm trying to ask is, you're in the trenches, like you are parenting, you are doing foster care still, but you've also adopted, so you're no stranger to hard behaviors. And so how do you make sure you are still in a space of growth and healing for yourself so that you can be the best for your kids?
Yeah, I think that's like the hardest part, to be totally honest with you, is especially as a single parent, like there's no tap out, there's no
Yeah.
like, I mean, there is in my support system, but it's not like in home, like
Yeah.
I can't do this right now. I need you to come and do bedtime or whatever. Like that's just not a
Yeah.
thing I have. And so I kind of realized early on that I needed to figure out that. And so sometimes I would like put myself in timeout to just remove myself from the
Okay.
situation.
Yeah.
Especially when they were all little, like I was like, okay, I'm going to take a break and just sit down. I would find somewhere to sit and just let the chaos unfold and then just get myself together and move on. But what's helped me do that and help me learn is finding growth opportunities. Like I've been in counseling for years and years at this point.
Okay.
I'm always finding new ways to grow. I'm
Mhm.
taking parenting classes through you. And then I've also taken some through the state of
Mhm.
like the URI stuff and just finding the knowledge I can find where I can, I knowing I don't know everything. Like I don't know everything about parenting. I came from a healthy background, I think for the most part,
Yeah.
but I still don't know everything about parenting and I still get triggered and it's hard to deal with screaming kids sometimes. And
Mhm.
just really figuring out like, okay, what is that affecting in me? And then going to the places where there's opportunities to learn about that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So tell me a little bit about your foster care journey.
Well, I got licensed about 4 years ago, and our first placement was like 3 days after getting licensed. And
Wow.
I remember her arriving the first day, and it was a really unique situation because she was coming from kind of from family, and they realized they couldn't do it, which was fine. But so we kind of did like a play date before, and then we just transitioned to like overnight, and then she just stayed, and she's stayed, and she's adopted
Mhm.
now. And so,
Mhm.
like, it was a brutal journey, though. I'm not gonna lie, like it was
Mhm.
probably so emotionally exhausting for me, and for her and from my
Yeah.
kids. And that was really, um, I don't think anything could have quite prepared me for the emotional up and downs. And I think if I
Yeah.
had that counseling, it would have been really a struggle. Um, and then since then, I've had a few, I think maybe 4 temporary placements.
Sure.
And for the most part, like we just had a little girl go home, not home, went to a relative yesterday.
Mhm.
And so she was with us for about 5 days. And so every kid's different. We've had
Mhm.
some
Yeah.
that have just like fit so well, and it's just
Mhm.
it's so easy. And then we've had like one that was really a challenge.
Yeah.
I had for like 3.5 weeks, and it felt like
Forever.
months. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's like in a place now where he needs to go. And I think that
Yeah.
was a really important one for me to realize, like, it's okay to say, I can't do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And able to let the social worker know. And thankfully she was amazing and
Mhm.
another home for him. Um, but yeah, that's kind of my journey in a nutshell.
Yeah. So it sounds like you maybe have had to have some good boundaries during foster care. How do you do that? And then like how have you learned how to do like how do you learn how to have boundaries? Where did you get that from?
Um, okay. So in foster care, I would say, one thing I feel like is really helpful is I know for a long time I would hear things from people like, oh my gosh, the social workers, oh my gosh, these people, whatever it was. There was always someone like I would hear from people that was like so difficult. And not to say I haven't experienced that, but I always go into every single meeting of like, this person's great. They're going to be wonderful. And I think it's really helped because overall it has been a frustrating experience at times, but the individual people have always been very helpful. And I think keeping that mindset of like, it's not a me versus them.
Yeah.
It's like we're working together. And it felt like that a lot. Like we had some amazing social workers who were just like, I always felt like they kept me in the know, which is a big thing for me. Like, I don't have to know everything, but I also kind of need to map things out. And so when I feel like there's not communication, that's a really hard thing for me as a foster parent. And thankfully, for the most part, we've had wonderful people. And so, but on top of that, like finding the place to set boundaries has been, it kind of goes back to like the soul searching of like, is this working? Like at the end of the day, what I've realized is if I am not parenting, if I don't have enough capacity to parent my children well, and do what's best for the ones that are already in my home, so like my two biological and my adopted child, then I'm not good for anybody. Like I have to be able to parent them first. And so that helps drive a lot of my ability to say yes or no. And then like the kiddo who was a bigger challenge for me. I just realized like I'm a single parent. I can't parent a child who has that much need and also my other three. And it's been helpful. Like I've had help along the way. Like that social worker at one point, I told her, well, I could keep him for one more week if you can't find a home for him. And was fabulous. And she said, no.
Yeah. She's like, I hear you. I hear you that you, that's good.
I get you. I've known you long enough to know, like you're trying to do, like, be helpful. But the reality of the situation is he's going to go to a place where, yes, he may not be in a foster home temporarily, but like where he's going, like there's not going to be an animal he can hurt. There's not going to be little kids he can hurt. Like you need to do this for you. And that's okay. So don't say you can take him another week because then that will, everyone will stop looking. And so that was helpful. Like that was a good reminder for me of like keeping that boundary when I felt kind of torn on it. And I think boundaries in general, it's something I've just learn, like it's taken a long time to learn boundaries. It's not something we're always taught growing up. To an extent, I think I was, but I've just learned to just figure out what works for me and my family, and just know that it's okay if people are bothered by the boundary. That's not my problem. My problem is making sure that I do it in a kind way, but also that, I'm protecting my peace and my kids' peace.
Yeah. I recently heard someone say that boundaries are saying yes to me and not no to you. So it's not like you're saying no to, this placement. You were saying yes to you and your kids, and that's okay. And there's nothing wrong with that. And I think boundaries can be misconstrued to be like that you're saying no to that child or no to, the situation, when it's really just you saying yes to you and your kids. So
I feel like when you really truly come from a place of boundaries where you're doing what is right, like deep down you're like, this is what the right choice is, it all works out the way it's supposed to. Like that little boy went to a home where she could give him one-on-one, and he's doing so much better now. Like that wouldn't have happened in my house. And if I had held on to it because it would have made me feel bad, like that's really selfish, as opposed to just setting a boundary that I knew needed to happen. And it just all worked out.
Yeah. That's good. Okay. So we're coming to the end of our time already. Can you believe it?
Gosh.
I know it's going by fast.
Love it.
But I just have a couple more questions for you.
Okay.
So the first one is, what do you wish more people would ask about foster care or adoption?
I think, gosh, sorry.
No, you're good.
I know you asked me this on the thing and I'm like, I don't even remember what I wrote.
Just come up with something new.
I do think something that's really huge for me in asking for foster care and adoption is like, how can I grow as a
Yeah.
parent and really help these kids? And then something that's really important to me is how do I help kids that are maybe not from my culture? How do I truly understand?
Mm,
How do I support children who are raised in a different culture?
mm-hmm,
Or I think that's so important to
mm-hmm.
really be open to learning um, ways to support all kids the way they need to be supported, and
Yeah.
not the way that people think they should be supported. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like, what do they say? The platinum rule, like treat others the way they need to be treated. They want to be
Yeah.
treated.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's really important. And I think like foster parents really should ask, like, what does this really look like? And where can I find growth to um constantly be learning? I think
Yeah.
you get into foster care and you think, I don't know, I had different thoughts on it than what
Mm-hmm.
the reality has been. And part of me is like, I don't know what all you can ask to really prepare yourself, but the more knowledge, the better.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, shoot, I lost it. Hold on. It'll come back to me. Oh, so how did you do that? How did you look at your child's culture and learn and grow to do what was best for her?
Well, I think part of it's just being surrounded by the people I'm surrounded, to be honest, like
Mhm,
you and Cass, all these people who have been through things like this. And then it's really helped to like lean on that
mhm,
when you're unsure of like, what's the right thing to do? Or how do I go about
mhm,
this? And then when it comes to culture, like my children are also of, mixed culture,
mhm,
mixed places. And so there was part of that, like I've already had to learn how to do like for my biological kids, like I've already had to
mhm.
learn like different hair and different stuff that then I needed to do for myself. And so I think
Sure.
that helped me.
Yeah.
But then also being in like my adopted daughter is part of the ICW
Okay.
unit.
Yep.
And so the Indian Child Welfare. And so that just listening to things and things that were important,
Yeah.
really, I think brought up to me things I needed to be like seeking out,
Yeah.
like
Yep.
what is important? What should I be looking for? And then sometimes family, I feel like can help with that depending on what the case is as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a little bit of that in our case, but so
Mhm.
much of it came from just like listening to what was important during the court case.
Yeah. Yeah. And paying attention to what you're learning and hearing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Okay. Last question.
Okay.
What are 3 resources that you would recommend to somebody who is maybe not necessarily in foster care or adoption, but just realizing like they need to find their own healing and kind of do better for their kids and their family as a whole unit?
Well, of course, I would recommend your classes. Duh.
Aw, thanks. Duh.
Um, no,
I
I like
promise I didn't pay you to say that.
no, you didn't. But I have found so much growth and healing in your class, specifically the one that we did, oh my
Making
gosh.
sense of your worth.
Yes. Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
so
Like
good.
amazing. And I think that was huge. TBRI classes and courses have been
Okay.
so great. I really loved I like the science behind those
Yeah.
courses. I feel like that for my brain, that's so helpful. Like I
Mhm.
remember one talking about the barrier between the left and right brain and how that's
Yeah.
bigger for kids who have been through trauma. And that works from the way my brain works.
Yeah. It
Oh, I
makes
get
sense for
that.
you. Mhm.
Yes. So I think that's huge. And then lastly, I would say counseling. Like find a
Okay.
counselor you fit with, like not every counselor is the same, but
Yeah.
finding one that you like fit with. And I remember a counselor saying they're not responsible for honesty in counseling. Like you have to come bearing that.
Yeah.
They're not going to dig and be like, oh, are you being so I think the other portion of counseling is just really being vulnerable and open,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
I think that's important.
Yeah. Yeah, because we can't grow and heal if we are constantly masking the part
Mhm.
of us that needs to grow and heal.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's good.
So,
How did you along the same lines, how did you find your counselor?
um, She was recommended by a friend, my current counselor.
Okay. Okay.
And it was funny because my friend was going for marriage counseling.
Okay.
And I chatted with my counselor and she's like, actually, I do this whole other type of counseling. And it is like very different from standard counseling, but it works for me. She's like,
Okay.
I think you would really like this. I was like, great, let's try it. I'm very open to all things. So
Yeah.
why not? So that was kind of how I found her. And
Okay.
previously I'd gone through like looking through phone books and whatnot. And I had a couple that I didn't click with. And then I've had some that have been phenomenal. So
Mhm. You just kind of skirted over that you said something about how she doesn't do like typical counseling. What is it?
Her counseling is called Healing Key Way. It is, there's like a program, like it's an actual thing.
Yeah.
She's a counselor who does it. Um, it's like so hard to explain. It's
Okay.
not like a normal, like you sit and just talk, I
Okay.
forget, where you
Yep.
just like go through all your feelings and stuff. We do some of that, but it's like energy healing and
Okay.
it's very interesting. It's very interesting, but I love it. And I
Okay.
am all about it. I've been doing it for like 2.5 years at this point.
Can you say one more time what it's called?
Healing Key Way.
Okay. I'm going to put more information about that in the show notes because for me, I know that talk therapy it doesn't work for everyone. It can be beneficial to some people. And at some point, like it is good. But sometimes we have to go deeper. And so we've talked about EMDR on here before with other guests. And so I just want to make sure that I'm giving resources because not everybody, maybe EMDR doesn't work for everyone. And so, what you have just mentioned could be an option. So I'm going to look that up and put more information about that in the show notes. And of course, I'll also put more about TBRI and my classes so that our listeners can learn more about that. But I appreciate all that you have shared today.
Oh,
You are just like a wealth. And I kept thinking about as I was trying to think about, okay, there's so many things I could have talked to you about today, Danielle, honestly. And so I had to just pick one lane. And maybe I'll have you come back another day and talk about other things. Because I just knew that if I tried to cover it all, we'd be here for more than the time that we
yes.
have allotted. So
Well, you're the best. Thank you so much for having me on. This has
this
been
was
so great.
fun. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.